Today's video is going to be about buying and selling used fountain pens and inks. For those of you that don't normally watch my videos, I show scenes of ink like this instead of having you watch me talk about stuff. I've bought and sold quite a few used fountain pens and ink and also minerals, but I do not consider myself an expert. I would really like to emphasize that and like to ask those of you that have a lot of experience or different kinds of experiences to please comment and share your knowledge with everyone else. The first thing I'd like to cover is why buy used fountain pens and inks. The best answer I got after posting the question was to avoid bankruptcy. So the first reason is that pens are more affordable when they're used. It is also a way to buy pens that are now out of production. And by extension, that would include vintage pens. I'm not really sure where you would draw the line at vintage pens. Like today, I'm going to use an example of the Edison Nouveau Cherry Blossom, which I bought in 2014. That is definitely not vintage, but here is pictured a Mew and a Parker 51, and everyone pretty much will agree these are vintage pens. There's more you need to know about buying and selling vintage pens, and I'll leave that for someone who's more experienced in that. Here is a unique reason to buy a used pen. I wanted Hiroko of Bokumondo to reduce one of my pens. This is a Mont Blanc 149 that I bought used that had a doctor's name inscribed somewhere here on the body, which really made the pen very inexpensive. But since it was going to end up being covered with urushi, it was an ideal pen for me to get. Another question to ask is buying and selling used fountain pens and inks going to hurt fountain pen businesses? By the very nature of our hobby, all these businesses are small businesses and we would all like to support them. But I would argue that it helps. By having these lower prices, you introduce more people to fountain pens. And as you introduce more people to fountain pens, more money gets put into the whole system. I'm sure every single person that's watching this video would really be surprised on the first time that they bought a fountain pen, how much now that they have spent on fountain pens and inks. I'm a firm believer, especially amongst the fountain pen community, that a rising tide lifts all boats. So I'll take you through my thought process on selling the Edison Nouveau Premier Cherry Blossom and Athena Blue Black ink. I know many of you have expressed concerns about buying used ink, and I understand that mold or any kind of other icky stuff could be a problem on used inks. Many people buy used inks because you can get them for a lot cheaper, or they're trying to buy an ink that they can't buy in their market or an ink that is discontinued. If you're worried about that, you could definitely look for new old stock ink. Ink that is not new but still not opened. If you're especially worried about mold in ink, make sure that any used pen you buy you clean thoroughly, as there may be ink in there too. I've found some icky stuff in a bottle of ink once in all the years that I've been using ink, and then couldn't sleep at night worried about what other pens I had inked up with that and whether or not I had spread that mold throughout all my pens and inks. It was kind of like contact tracing for mold in inks. But every bottle has its own fungicides and bactericides, and it never came to anything. But I can certainly understand the fear. I sell inks that are typically limited edition or hard to get, and I bundle them in a group so it makes the shipping cheaper, and then usually I throw in a couple of bottles of just regular ink for free. As I said, I'll be selling this Edison Nouveau Cherry Blossom that I bought in 2014. It comes with a fine nib, but since I have so many Edisons, I can also offer a 1.1 instead. I'll let the buyer choose. First up, we need to clean the pen, and I use Pen Flush, which is 10 parts water, 1 part ammonia, and a few drops of like dish soap that's not scented. I just keep it in cool bottles like this that I bought quite some time ago. And then you'll want to flush it several times with water also. It's still kind of dirty, so I'm going to take the nib unit out and see if I can clean it a little better. I'm using the little brush to scrub it out, but that wasn't enough, so I'm going to use a sonic cleaner with both water and a little bit of Pen Flush. The ink left cool chromatography. Next, we're going to prepare the ink. I keep all my ink boxes and I store my inks in there. And here we can see the price, which we're going to need to remember when I end up pricing my ink. I just check the bottle for cracks in the cap and how much ink there is in there. Then I look inside to check for mold or any icky stuff, and again to verify how much ink is in there. Then I carefully wipe down the neck and the opening pretty thoroughly because I don't want to have any ink leaking out. I also thoroughly clean out the cap. For some reason, not having ink in the cap or the rim really cuts down on ink leaking out. Then I cap it and really tighten it down. Next, we'll take the pictures. Beautiful pictures have better sales, but don't worry too much about it. You're just looking for clear, brightly lit pictures, maybe taken near a window, and you can even take them with your phone. I also forgot to mention I like to throw in random videos of pretty pens. I'm not selling this one. But your pictures don't need to be glamour shots. Here's the picture I took for the ink, and notice I also included the box. This is kind of a glamour shot. This is the picture I took of the pen, and notice I have one with the cap on laying flat out, one with the cap unscrewed where you can see the body and the nib, and a close-up picture of the nib. Here the lighting is bad, it's not a glamour shot, but it gets the information across. I have 2 pictures of the nibs because I'm giving the buyer a choice. There's a little bit of ink that's left in the section that I couldn't get out, and I'll need to mention this in my description. Then you'll need to compose your description. What model is it? What condition is it in? Does it have any defects, like the little bit of staining I had in my section? If you're selling ink, how much ink is in the bottle? If it's a pen, do you still have a box? Does the buyer even want the box? They'll probably want any paperwork or warranties associated with the pen. You'll need to wrap it securely, and the ink I put it in its box, wrap it in bubble wrap, and put each of those inside of a Ziploc so one bottle breaking doesn't ruin the rest. I personally insure everything that I ship. I break down the cost of each bottle of ink even though I sell it as a set, so if one bottle breaks, the person will know how much they can claim on insurance. If they find mold or somehow find something else in the ink, I will repay them for the price of that particular ink. But I've not had any problem with that at all. Other optional information you can include in your description is why you are selling. If it's ink, maybe you don't like the color or it's too dry for you. In my case with the pen, I have way too many pink and sparkly pens, and I've now hit my sparkle limit. Some of the seller's responsibilities include having good, clear pictures, an accurate description, and to answer questions promptly. Also, once you've made the sale, you should mail it promptly, preferably in the next couple days. The buyer's responsibilities include asking questions so you're not surprised about what you're getting, and then promptly paying the seller once you've agreed upon a price. Now you need to determine a price, and I'll tell you up front that I way underprice my stuff, mainly because I want it sold right away. To get the best price, you need to be willing to sit on your listing for a while. To determine a price, you want to take a look at how much you paid for your ink or your pen. Is that pen still available new? You don't want to list your price the same as a new pen. An easy place to research pens is eBay. Look up the item you're trying to sell and see how much it's going for. It's important to look at the sold listings as opposed to what people are just listing the pen or ink for. Some of them are pretty ridiculous prices. If you decide to list with eBay, remember they take a commission like 10% or something. And then also the most common payment form is PayPal, which takes 2.9% for a sale or 4.4% for international. If you're brand new at selling on eBay, you will have to make your prices cheaper because people trust sellers that have more sales and they can ask for better prices. As a buyer, if you're using PayPal, you'll have the choice to choose between friends and family and goods and services. You want to choose goods and services. Friends and family is used to send money to your friends and family. The seller will not have a charge to him, but if there is any problem with the sale, you cannot file a claim because you misused friends and family. And as far as the seller, don't use online retailers' pictures. First of all, they're not your pictures. And second of all, it's not an actual picture of the product that you are selling. There are a couple other options to look for pens or to sell your pens. One is Fountain Pen Network. You can check at the top under Rules and Guidelines for the classified rules, but mainly you need to have been a member for 30 days and have at least 30 posts. There are no fees to list. They emphasize that the classifieds is a way for their members to sell their pens and ink. It's not so much a venue just for anyone to just sell pens and ink. Next up is Reddit's Pen Swap. You need to check out their rules, but mainly you need to have a Reddit account that you've been on for at least 3 months. You need 100 comment karma, and when you post pictures of your pen, you need to have a verification where you post a picture with both your username and the date. There is no fee, and they require you to only use PayPal goods and services. And on Instagram, there's Virtual Pen Show. You can post your sale for $3. There are also various groups on Facebook to buy and sell. Here's one called Fountain Pen Collecting, Buy, Sell, Trade. Some people don't want to deal with the hassle of selling something, and you might want to consider Fountain Pen Network's Pay It Forward. Here you basically give away your pen or your ink to someone who might appreciate it more. You can either offer to pay for shipping, have the person who's receiving it pay for the shipping, or limit the area where you're willing to ship. Some additional considerations. If you're selling a very inexpensive pen, you might try grouping several together, bundling it with some ink or some paper or anything else. That way you can cover your shipping easier. If you're buying a vintage pen, you may ask if it's been resacked recently, or you may want to factor in the cost to have it resacked, or the piston seals restored, or any other kind of restoration. As a purchasing plan for your pen collection, you may want to buy expensive pens used and then treat yourself every once in a while to a new inexpensive pen. That way you can make your money stretch further. Overall, I've had a really great experience buying and selling used pens and ink. You may get an occasional dud, as one of my commenters said, but then I feel like that's the same for new pens too. I'll put the websites to list your pens and ink on in the description box below. And please put your experiences, advice, funny stories, or whatever in the comments. Let us all benefit from your knowledge. And if you enjoyed this, I would appreciate a thumbs up and a subscribe. I'll see you next week.